Hi, welcome to my ZOTAC Gaming Geforce RTX 3090 M Core Holo review. I got this card because I was not satisfied with my other ZOTAC card, which was the ZOTAC Gaming Trinity OC. This is one of the original card that was first released from ZOTAC, especially on the 3090 series, and it only features two 8-pin PCIe power connector, which limits the overclocking capability of the 3090 somewhat, because you're going to hit that 2-pin power limit very quickly. So when ZOTAC announced that they were going to build the second generation of their RTX 3090, their M Core Holo series, and when I checked out their spec, and I noticed that it actually features a 3 8-pin PCIe power connector, this immediately piqued my interest, because this allows users such as myself who like to overclock their GPUs, and allows, with the 3-pin, it will now open up and allows a greater overclocking limit than the original 3090 Trinity OC. So as you can see from the website, this is directly from ZOTAC, you can see that it is a very different design from their old Trinity OC. The Trinity OC looked a lot more, plain, whereas the new ZOTAC 3090 Amp Core Holo series has a much slicker and newer design, and has more RGB lighting, which to some gamers this is a very attractive feature. So today I'm just going to go into a lot more kind of technical details, and I'm going to also show how to repad this 3090. So I'm primarily a gamer, but when my computers are not being used, I also like to mine some Ethereum, which allows me to make some money on the side during the downtime, and can make back the cost of my GPU. As you know, that GPU right now, the pricing are a little bit out of hand, and because of the short GPU supplies, and for this card, the Msrp on this car is actually 2200 something, and because ZOTAC is located in California and I'm also living in California, so when I purchased this car, I had to pay an additional $200 something worth of tax on top of the Msrp. So total out of door pricing for this car for me is around $2,500. And so it would be nice, while Ethereum is still mineable, that I can mine during the downtime and be able to make some of that money back to offset the cost of this pretty expensive 3090 video card. Alright, so with that being said, next I'm going to go and show you some of the photos I've taken when I first got the card. So here's the box I got, and on top of that, that's my Dell XPS 13-inch laptop. So as you can see, just the box itself is quite hefty, and that's a 13-inch laptop, and it looks tiny compared to the box that the 3090 was shipped in. And next, I will show you that what it looks like once it's taken outside. As you can see, that's the video card, and it's a little bit longer than my laptop even. And one thing I was pretty lucky actually, is I had the original Trinity OC 3090, and it fit my case well, and still have a few I would say a couple of centimeters, or about an inch of clearance from my fans. But I never bothered to check the new dimensions for the Holo series. So for anyone who's out there who's interested to get the Holo series, make sure you check the dimensions of your case first to see whether or not this beast of a card can actually fit inside your case. So next I'll show you. Yeah, this is a close-up picture of the card that I've taken, and this is the back of the card. Now, there's one interesting thing that they've added since the Trinity series is, let me turn on my pen here real quick, is this chip, this power boost chip. It is I think this is one of those smart power management IC, or PMIC for short. This chip supposedly will optimize the power inputs and will balance against clock speed versus power limits and all that, and find the most optimal performance boost for you automatically, and so that you don't have to go in and manually tweak, trying to overclock yourself or tweak the voltages and all that. This chip's supposed to be able to do that for you automatically. So in some ways, for those of you who do not like to tinker with overclocking and all that, this is a godsend. This is great. But for myself, I'll talk about later in my video that actually this smart PMIC, or power management IC, will cause some headache, especially if you try to optimize your performance setting for mining. For gaming, this is fine, but for mining, this power IC will actually be an hindrance, and I still don't know how to overcome this issue. So I'll talk about that a little bit later. All right, let me switch back to cursor, and let me remove clear screen. Yeah, so and this is the top photo, as you can see very clearly here. Here are the 3 8-pin PCIe connectors, and that was one of the features I'm really looking for, and I'm excited to actually have a card from ZOTAC that now features this 3 8-pin connector. All right. Next, and this is the bottom view. This is where the PCIe connector connects to the motherboard. As you can see here, there's nothing special here, but I do want to highlight a little bit. So let me turn on my pen again. So these two connectors, as I go through the how to open up your ZOTAC 3090 Holo card and how to do a repad or upgrade the thermal pads of this card, those connectors will need to be removed, and I'll talk about that once we get to that section. All right, so let's keep going. And here's my card installed out of factory. And as you can see, you know, I didn't even remove the plastic film that's on the housing or the shroud. As you can see, you know, this is a beast of a card, and it's butting right against my system fan there. Let me highlight that area right there, and I believe I have maybe 2 or 3 millimeters of clearance remaining. So you know, I was pretty lucky that you know, it fit my car without, you know, me removing fans or doing some other funky modifications to get it to fit. So I kind of lucked out. But please make sure when you if you want to purchase this card, make sure you check your dimensions of your case first to see that it will actually fit before you buy it. Otherwise, you're gonna have to do something pretty drastic. All right, so let's go on. Clear screen. And this is that clearance I was telling you about earlier. As you can see, I have just barely enough clearance before the shroud hitting my case fan. So, you know, again, check your dimensions. I was lucky. All right. And here are the 3 8-pin connectors coming from my power supply. And also you'll see here I have a how do you call it, an anti-sag, GPU's sag support. And I'll post links to all the various components I use in this video in my YouTube channel below, so you'll be able to click through it and find the components I use if you want to follow my lead on that. So as you can imagine, having this large of a card, the instant I installed it, it's already sagging. So just be aware that it's a very, very heavy card, and so you need to be very careful, especially sag could wear on the PCIe slot. It could also put pressure on the PCB, because the PCIe connector is part of the PCB, and if you leave it for too long, it could potentially damage the PCB or the PCIe slot, or both, right? So a GPU support such as this is highly recommended to release some of the pressure from just the weight of this card. It's quite incredible. All right, so let's go on. And here's my case with the 3090 Holo installed. As you can see, it is it's a great looking card, especially for those who are into RGB lighting, for to showcase your PC. I mean, right here I got a really nice case that has glass and doors or windows that you can see in the inside of it, and as you can see, just the stock, without modifying anything, the RGB lighting on the 3090 Holo series it looks great. It's a great looking card, but just kind of give you a heads up down the line that the RGB. So one of the things that I'll show you later in the video. One of the things that I was disappointed with ZOTAC, what ZOTAC did for the new 3090 Amp Holo series, is that they sacrificed some of the thermal capabilities or thermal performance for RGB lighting, and I'll show you in detail exactly what they've done and why I was a little bit disappointed with it. But I then came up with a method to kind of overcome that and really improve the thermal performance of the 3090 Holo series. But at this, you'll see that there'll be some trade-offs that you have to make in order to get your thermal performance back up. So just kind of give you a heads up. But by default, it's a great looking car, and I'm very, very happy with just the aesthetics part of the 3090. All right, so let's go on. And here again is the back of the card. I just took a bunch of photos, but from here I'm going to start talking about how you would take apart this card. So I want to show you all the screws that you need to remove if you decide to repad or change the stock thermal pad to something better. So one of the things that many people complain online and on many forums is that the thermal pads used by ZOTAC from the factory are not great. They are these very gooey, sticky, black thermal pads, and I'm not sure. I think the thermal, ZOTAC never reveal what type of who the manufacturer of their thermal pads are, and also they never reveal their thermal performance as well. So especially for hardcore gamers who like to overclock, or for miners who want to mine Ethereum, memory, the GDDR6X memory temperature especially for the 3080 and 3090 series, are always of concern. So, one of the first things that serious gamers and miners will want to do is to repad or to change out the old ZOTAC factory thermal pads with something from aftermarket. And I'll show you what I use later on in the video, but I just want to kind of point that out, that repadding of the thermal pads on ZOTACs will bring drastic improvement to the performance of the ZOTAC cards. Actually, ZOTAC, and one kind of a side point, ZOTAC actually makes great video cards if they just spent maybe just a little bit more on the thermal pads and some of the kind of the thermal designs. I think they're right up there with some better known names as EVGA and Asus and other cards, great card manufacturers out there. Really what held ZOTAC back are just the poor thermal design of ZOTAC, and the kind of this area is really what's holding back ZOTAC, and also there may be a lot more conservative power limit that they set on their cards, and versus these other more well-known AIB car manufacturers out there. So with that being said, let me show you the screws that you will need to remove in order to take the 3090 Holo series apart. So let me switch back to the pen. So these are the screws that you will need to remove, and these are spring-loaded screws. As you can see from this photo, I've removed these screws already. So that's right there, and then these two as well. As you can see here in this photo, I didn't remove these, but later on I realized I actually need to remove them as well in order to take the heatsink apart from the PCB. So these are the screws that you need to remove, and the sizes for the spring-loaded screws are all the same, so you don't have to worry about which screws belongs to which hole. And then these two screws here, these are two separate screws, and they do have different size. So you just need to be aware that for these two screws, you need to remember that these are where they should be, and then for these, I would say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 spring-loaded screws. You don't have to worry about where they belong to. You just put them, just make sure you put them in a safe place that you don't, lose them, and you can just put the screws back on when you're done. So they are the same size. All right. Okay. So let's go on to the next page. Yeah, it's the same photo. I don't know why I've taken two, but and this is the connector or HDMI DisplayPort connector side. And I want to point out another thing is that you do need to remove these three screws as well, and they are the same size. So again, you just need to put them in a safe place, and remember that these three screws belongs to the PCIe connect, or not PCIe, the HDMI and DisplayPort connector plate. So just remember that. Okay. Next. So these are the two connectors I talked about at the beginning of my video. As you can see, you do need to remove these two in order to to disassemble the shroud heatsink assembly from the PCB. And maybe let me take a step back. So once you have those screws from the back removed, you should be able to safely open or separate the heatsink shroud housing from the PCB. Now, one thing I do want to mention is that it is a little bit sticky, meaning the thermal paste that they use provides a little bit of stiction. So you do need to put a little force, but not too much. You can feel it by your hands. You should be able to wiggle a little bit and eventually separate the two. But as you separate the two parts of the housing shroud assembly from the PCB, don't just pull it straight up, because you got to remember that there are connectors that's coming from the shroud and the heatsink housing that's connected to the PCB, such as the two connectors that I'm showing now, these two. So if you just pull straight up, you may pull the wires, or you may just rip the wires and cause damage, which is not irreparable, but it's just a pain in the ass if you have to repair or fix something that you didn't have to do because you try to repad your 3090. Just keep that in mind. So as you remove the housing assembly from the PCB, just be careful and remember that there are still wires connected, so you need to remove them one step at a time. So let me go to the next. Alright, and so now here's some more cables, as you can see, that are connected between the housing assembly and the PCB. So these connectors are your fan control. I'm sorry, these are actually the LED or the RGB LEDs. So you need to remove them. And for me, the white connector was very easily removed, but the black connector, I just had a hell of a time removing them. But then once I remove these two connectors and the white connector, as you can see here, the cable is actually pretty long. So you don't necessarily have to remove this to do your repad. You can just flip the housing assembly over, and you can lay the two halves next to each other, top and bottom, and you can do everything that you need to do without removing this connector. So if you have a hard time removing this black connector here, like I did, which I was not able to remove it without putting excessive amount of force in it, so I just decided to leave it on and do my work without actually removing this connector. So just you can keep that in mind. All right, so let's move on. All right, and so now you can see what I was talking about. So here, as you can see, I have removed this white connector, and I also removed the two bottom connectors from the housing assembly here. And but I was not able to remove this black wire. But as you can see, it's long enough where I can lay the housing and the PCB top and bottom without interfering with all the things I needed to do. So it's an option. Just want to put it out there. So if you feel uncomfortable or are a little bit scared about removing all the connectors without excessive force, especially with this one, you can just leave it in there, and it does not interfere with all the work that you need to do. And with that, let me clear the screen here. And now you can see these are the stock thermal pads that are used by ZOTAC, and then there's some thermal pads here as well. These you don't need to change because these components, although they generate heat and gets removed by the heatsink, they're not of concern. The biggest concern for many gamers and miners are these pads for the GDDR6X. These things will run hot, and if you don't have proper cooling on it, they're gonna very easily reach the thermal limit, which is set to be 110 degrees Celsius. And once you hit that temperature, then the self protection algorithm from the GPU will kick in, and you will be thermal throttled severely, and you're gonna lose a lot of gaming performance and or mining performance as well. So definitely want to upgrade these pads so that you don't get hit by these thermal throttles, especially because the memory run too hot. All right, with that being said, one other comment I want to make about these ZOTAC stock thermal pads. As you can see, some of them already had some minor damage, and I didn't even touch these. These came like this factory. So as you can see, these aren't very good. And also, if you look at the thermal paste that they use, this is some really thin thermal paste I use. Again, it's not great. So later on, I'll show you video. I mean, I'll talk about in my video how to clean this up and put something better in its place. Oh, and regarding the memory junction temperature, there's a lot of debate on what is a safe range for GDDR6X, and actually there's a lot of information that's already published on the internet and on many forums as well. But I do want to make a comment on that. So, the temperature reading that you get from GPU-Z or HW Info 64, they're reading what they call TJ, and J stands for junction. So junction are basically the legs of the memory that's attaching the chip. That's the legs that's between the memory and the PCB, and it's the metal part, and so it's actually the hottest part of the component. So when you see something that's when you see a temperature rating, most of the time the chip actually publish what they call TC, temperature of the casing or the enclosure of the chip. So that means they're talking about the temperature of this plastic casing, not the temperature of the metal part that's underneath. And so as you search on the internet, you'll see that Micron, the maker of the GDDR6X, published their safe temperature range of 95 degrees TC, which is the temperature of the casing. But then the monitoring software is measuring the temperature of the junction. So it's not a direct one-to-one correlation. But luckily, Ecolabs from Germany, he has performed a test where he measured the delta or the difference between the TC and the TJ, which is the junction temperature, and he noticed that the difference between TC and TJ is around 20 degrees Celsius. So what that means is that when you hit 110 degree TJ, your casing temperature is around 90 degrees. So it's around 5 degrees lower than the maximum recommended temperature published by Micron. So what that means is, when you look at your TJ on your monitoring software, you have to subtract about 20 degrees to understand what the TC temperature is. Right, so that means if you read 100 degree TJ, then it's around 80 degree TC. Now, one can argue that the TJ-TC relationship may not be linear, but in many cases, it's close enough that even if it's a little bit irregular, you don't have to worry too much. And so, with that being said, as long as you can keep your TJ to let's say 90 degrees Celsius, 90 to 100 degrees Celsius, then you in effect will have around 70 to 80 degrees of TC, which is well below the 95 degrees TC limit that's published by Micron. So just keep that in mind as you read your GDDR6X memory temperature, that you are not reading the TJ, which is published by, you're not reading the TC, which is published by Micron. You're reading the TJ, and you have to do a little bit math in order to know what the C is, and whether or not you are operating in a safe temperature range or not. So anyways, that's enough for me rambling about GDDR6, TJ, and TC. Hopefully, you know, you with this knowledge, you can then do your own research and you know, make your own judgment on what you believe should be the safe temperature for your memory junction, for your GDDR6 memories. All right, enough rambling on that. Let me go on to the next page. Yeah, and this is that trouble connector I was showing you earlier. I just couldn't get it off. I don't know why, and I didn't want to put too much force on that, but we can move on to that. So here's just a close-up view of the NVIDIA GPU. So, you know, here's the GPU, and here are your troublesome GDDR6X memory. All right, let's go on. And here's another photo of these connectors removed. Okay, and then once you have it removed, let me see what's the next page. Okay. So once you have it removed, the back plate are still screwed into the PCB. So I'll be showing you next on how to remove the back plate from the PCB. So let me highlight some screws that you will need to remove. So actually, to remove the back plate, there are a number of small screws, but luckily they are all of the same size. So, you know, you don't have to worry about where these screws come from. Just as long as you put them in a safe place where you remember where they are and you don't lose them, I think you're good. All right, so this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 screws. So you need to remove these 8 screws from the PCB in order to remove the back plate. So just keep that in mind. So again, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 screws. All right, and once you remove the these screws, there are some more screws you have to remove. Next, you have to remove the screws that's holding the grill. So here, let me see. So if you go on to the next page, and so those are the two screws that you well, it's which is part of the original 8 screws I was mentioning about. But this is once you have removed these screws, then the grills can come out. So you just remember that you have to take the grill out. All right. Okay, and this, yeah, I don't know if you already know this. There's something not quite right with this picture. I'll give you a few seconds for you guys to guess what is not right. Okay, well, I don't know if you guessed it or not, but here is a major problem where ZOTAC sacrificed the thermal performance because for the aesthetics. So as you can see here, there are actually 2 more GDDR6 chips here, and then there are 4 GDDR6 chips here that are completely unpadded on the back. So those pads are completely missing, and the reason they're missing, and you know, and ZOTAC is actually smart because this LED kind of material is plastic, and plastic is not a good thermal conductor. In fact, plastic is probably the worst thing for thermal conductivity. It's actually an insulator. So putting thermal pads on top of plastic doesn't help at all, right? So they just decided, you know, we're not going to put any pads on these. But the problem now is that as you game or as you mine, you know, the T junction temperature that's reported is the monitoring software does not differentiate which chip is reporting the hottest temperature. It just reports the hottest temperature of all the chips, and whichever is the hottest is what gets reported. So as you can imagine, these 6 chips here are completely unpadded, which means that, you know, these are your hottest chips. And so everything else could be nice and cool, but because these are completely unpadded and uncooled, they're going to heat up, and then next thing you know, you might experience some strange crashes, or you may just, you know, be throttled to hell because, you know, the GPU needs to pull back on the power because these unpadded chips are going to overheat, and they're going to hit that 110 degrees C TJ very quickly, you know, because of the unpadded nature. So, you know, this is where I was really, really disappointed with ZOTAC not able to solve this, and instead just left it unpadded and basically said, well, good luck, users. Hopefully you don't run into those thermal issues, but if you do, well, too bad, right? You know, there are solutions that they could have done. I mean, what they could have done is they could have added they could have put thin copper shims or plates over them, and have them attach to the backplate. The backplate from the ZOTAC 3090 Holo series are actually really good. Like, these are thick aluminum pieces. They're super rigid, so they can act as a form of heatsink, and, you know, and aluminum, as you know, are used in many heatsink designs. So they're also very good thermal They also have pretty good thermal conductivity, but, you know, if you don't use them, then you're not getting the benefits of a really nice backplate. And so, you know, I was very disappointed when ZOTAC just decided, you know, we're not going to put thermal pads over plastic, which makes sense, but they didn't then trying to fix this by putting like a thin copper layer which attaches to this really nice backplate to kind of, you know, draw some of the heat away from these super hot memory chips. So now instead you just have nothing, right? You like literally nothing here. So these are gonna be your hottest chips right there, and that's gonna be your biggest performance drawback. Is that. So as I was looking at this, and, you know, I didn't have any like thin copper plates or any other way of conducting the heat away from these GDDR6 memory. So, you know, it's kind of a hard call at this point. You know, do I want to keep the really nice looking LED effects, especially on the backplate, or do I want to remove the LED lighting and figure out a compromise thermal solution? So I decided, I thought really hard and really loved the LED lighting effect of this new ZOTAC 3090 Holo series. It's really good looking. But I decided that from a long-term kind of longevity perspective, and also from gaming performance perspective, I'm an overclocker first. I decided, you know what, I'm going to make the leap, and I'm going to sacrifice and remove the LED pad or the plastic LED lighting component, and I'm going to try to come up with a thermal solution that will help me cool my memory chips. So that's what I decided to do. Okay, so going on next. So this again, this is the back side, and as you can see, you know, very clearly, the ZOTAC pads leaves a little bit of grease. So here the padded memory chips. But as you can see, these two chips are super clean. They have no oil residue on them, and these 4 chips has, you know, it's pristine, absolutely no residue. It's just nothing, right? So again, these are going to be your hottest chips here. So, you know, I was just disappointed that these chips are completely unpadded. So they're going to be your hottest chips. All right. And yeah, and I forgot to say, this is what the back of the PCB looks like once you remove that really nice looking back plate. Okay, all right. Yeah, and again, this is a close-up picture of that, and as you can see, you know, the ZOTAC pads aren't great. There's already some damage on this one already. So, and this is just factory untouched. So, you know, going to something better would definitely help in that department. So yeah, I decided, you know, I'm gonna sacrifice the nice looking LED lighting, and you know, I'm gonna remove them. And so how to remove these? Well, these are actually glued, so that just imagine that plastic housing just sits inside this groove, and they're held together by glue. So what I did is I just took the back plate, pushed my finger through the holes here, and then just slowly push it out, and then you'll be able to push out that plastic LED light, and be able to remove it. So that's how I actually remove it. If you do want to go down this path, is just put your finger through this hole, and you'll just slowly push it out. Now that plastic housing is pretty thin and kind of flimsy, because, you know, just it's really meant for LEDs. It doesn't be anything rigid. So if one day you do want to sell the card, or you do want to put the LED back, you know, just be careful with it, because, you know, once you damage it, I'm not sure you're able to find the part to replace this, because I think this is pretty unique to the ZOTAC 3090. I don't think any other cards have this type of design, and, you know, this is ZOTAC logo, so, you know, the only source to get these will be from ZOTAC. So, you know, if you ever want to return the car or RMA, or, you know, sell it on eBay or whatever, you know, and back to its original factory conditions, just be careful as you remove this. Otherwise, if you damage them, then you're done. I don't think they can be replaced. Okay, so that's what it looks like once you have it removed. And this is that LED lighting. You can see it just held together by glue everywhere. And this is the 3-pin. This is a standard 5 volt 3-pin LED. So nothing special. And as you can see, that's positive data, negative, or ground. So yeah, just carefully remove this. You can just use your fingers poking through the hole, and they'll just pop right out. All right, let's go on. And you can do the same with the other part of the LED. So once you have the entire backplate LED removed, this is what it looks like. Again, these are all plastic, and this is kind of flimsy, because, again, you know, this is really for LED, so it doesn't have to be very rigid or well built. And I think what they've done is just fine. This is actually not a knock on ZOTAC. It's just that, you know, because it's only for LED, so, you know, it's what it is. And again, you know, as you remove this, just be very careful. This is held by adhesives here all along the edge, as you can see here, and then quite a bit of adhesive here. So just slowly pry it, use your hand, or maybe use the flat end of the screwdriver. But the screwdriver can easily damage the LED elements here along the side. So just be super careful. Don't put a lot of force in there. If you will have one of those like flung open spudgers, those probably will be even better because they'll be plastic and a little bit gentler on plastic parts. Plastic on plastic is better than metal on plastic. So just keep that in mind. But you can remove this, just slowly pry it out because they're just glued together in the pink area here. And this is what it looks like once you have it completely removed from the back plate. All right, let's go on. And this is what it looks like once you have the LED lighting elements removed, as you can see. And the old original ZOTAC thermal pads are still there. I didn't bother to clean up the glue residue because these areas aren't. I don't have anything here, so I'm not too worried about it. I did clean up the glue residue in this area because later I'm gonna be able to need to have this area open and cleaned up for me to do my thermal upgrades. So I just used my fingernail to scrape off the glue residue in this area. So just keep that in mind. If you do want to follow me in how I improve my thermal, you want to clean up this area's glue residue. But this area, it's unused, so it doesn't really matter. So I didn't bother to clean up. So I just leave them as is. Excuse me. All right. So let's move on. So yeah, so here's what I've done. So I use Gillette or Gillette. I don't know how you actually pronounce the name correctly, but it's Gillette GP Extreme. It's a really soft thermal pad. It has great reviews, and I actually used it on my ZOTAC Trinity OC before, and again it's great, and it's very soft. It feels like one of those putty, but on a softer side. It's like a really soft putty. So how do you cut the right sizes? What I did is I just take the old ZOTAC pads and I lay it on top of the Gillette pad, and I just cut along the edges, and that's how I kind of trace it. So as you can see here, my cut is not super straight, a little bit crooked there, a little bit jagged there, a little bit crooked there, but it doesn't really matter as long as you're close enough and you can cover all your memory. That's all you need. It doesn't have to be good looking or anything. So do your best and think ahead a little bit. How you cut your Gillette GP Extreme thermal pads so that you can maximize the usage. So for me, for this thermal upgrade, I bought 2 of the 80 by 40 millimeter by 2 millimeter packs. So the reason I bought 2 is because you pretty much use the entire one whole pack for each side. So because 3090s have memory on both sides of the PCB, so you will need to have 2 packs. So 2 packs minimum. So if you do buy these standard 80 by 40 millimeter thermal pads, make sure you get 2 pads if you want to repad your 3090. Now, if you want to only repad for 3080, 3080 has memory only on one side of the PCB, so 1 pack is probably enough. But for 3090s, definitely get 2 packs. And I use every part of the 2 packs, so they're like almost no leftover. So 2 pack is absolutely minimum. If you want to be safe, you may want to get 3 packs in case you make a mistake. You have a backup. For me, I've done this before, so I know that 2 packs, and if I just trace the outlines of the old pads, I should be able to get all the pads I need, so I don't need to buy the third one as in backup. But just for those of you who are new or have never done this before, you may want to get the third pack just in case. If not, if you're pretty confident, then get 2 packs. That's all you needed. So okay, so that's what I've done. I've repadded that. So now, as you know, now I've added a pack. I added thermal pads where it was, especially this part. So let me clear that out. So I added thermal pads to here and to here that was not there before, right? So but then you think, well, are there holes here where the logos, where the logo and the plastic used to be? Yeah, that's right. But the good thing about thermal pads is that they're 2mm right now, but when when you have a lot of heat, they will expand a little bit, and they will form, or they will fit into, or they will expand into those kind of crevices and gaps. So I'm not too worried about it. Especially, I know how hot these GDDR6X will get, so there will be a little bit of thermal expansion on these pads. So and I'll show you like what I've done, how I overcome some of the issues that ZOTAC created when they added the additional LED lighting. So, but I just want to show you the memories after they've been fully padded. So this is what it looks like. All right. So, and here's the front, and I removed all the old ZOTAC pads. As you can see, there's a little bit of oil residue there. That's those pads are just horrible. They have these really funny oil residues all over the place. Okay. So now I reassembled the back plate to my PCB, and as you can see, this is where the logo used to be, and this is where the pad now is exposed from the memory that was not padded before. So, what do I do? I mean, there's, you put pads there, but there's nothing to sink the heat to, so that does not solve your problem. Well, absolutely, that's correct. And so what I've decided to do is I also purchased a heatsink that I wanted to mount to the back of the PCB, and that heatsink is just the right size. Again, I'll list all the parts and components in my video, link down below, so you know what I'm talking about. But now, once I have this thing padded, and I still have a, I don't know if you can see it, I didn't take a good picture of this. There's actually around 2mm of height gap all alongside here. So, well, guess what? We still have a little bit of leftover from our 2mm pads. So I decided, well, it's about 2mm, and I still have a little bit of extra pads remaining. So I can just use that and squeeze it in like putties. So that's what I did. And you'll see what I've done. Oh, not now, but down later on I'll show you. And this is again just a close-up of the heatsink with not just junk thermal grease. Oh, and this is the back heatsink that I purchased. And I put it here for size. As you can imagine, as you can see, the size of this heatsink perfectly fits all the hottest component of this PCB. So, this is the front, obviously, but the front and back are identical, in terms of the size. So as you can see, this heatsink will perfectly cover this entire hot area. If I mount this heatsink on the back of the back plate, I should be able to, heatsink away all the heat that's generated from this area, but on the back. So I just put that here, just to show you the size and kind of, for visualization, just to show you that, this heatsink is the perfect size to cover the hottest component on the GPU. All right. So let's go on. And this is just this is just another photo of me putting that heatsink covering exactly the hottest component on a GPU. So as you can see, this is just the perfect size for this GPU. So here, as you can see in the front, I now added again. I used the Gillette GP Extreme thermal pads here, and again I just used the existing thermal pads, and I just lay this on top of them and just use scissors to trace over them and cut them. As you can see, no, not all the cuts are perfect. Here's even a little bit of, you know, I think, you know, it was like I was pulling on, there was some stuff that stuck to it. I'll use my finger or something. But anyways, as you can see, I repadded and covered all the GDDR6 here. All right, and then next, then I use you know, 75% alcohol. I think that's what I have. I don't have a 95% alcohol at home, so I just use 75% alcohol, and I use Q-tips, and I just, you know, put alcohol on the Q-tip and just slowly wipe away the old original thermal grease. As you can see, from the original thermal grease, there's some runoffs. You don't have to worry. You don't need to clean these up because they don't do anything. It won't hurt having thermal grease here. And the great thing about thermal grease is they're non-conductive. So, you know, having extras there, it's not gonna hurt anything, and you don't need to clean them. You don't really need to clean them. Just make sure you clean up the mirror-like surface, and that's where the important thing. But any extras on the side, you don't need to clean up. And because I don't have, you know, 95% alcohol, mine's like 75%, which means it still has a lot of water content in the alcohol, and I didn't feel comfortable using my Q-tip and alcohol here, because you can see there's a rows of resistors on the side, and I don't want to have any water residue remaining. So, and it's not worth it to take that chance to, you know, if you have, you know, some water that you didn't clean up or kind of left here, you could have electrical shorts in this area, especially with all these exposed components. So you don't need to clean it. Just leave it the way it is. Just make sure you know the main mirror surface GPU cover. Just make sure this is really nice and clean. As you can see, you know, you can read the silk screening very clearly, and you know it's completely clean. It's like a mirror. So as long as you get to that cleanliness, that's all you need. All right. So, and this is the thermal compound I use. I heard great reviews on this, and I used it multiple times myself for my CPU and bunch of GPU repads I've done before. So just want to show you, this is the one I used. What is it called? Thermagic EX. Pretty good. I bought this from AliExpress, but I think you can also purchase this from the US, maybe for a few more dollars extra, but you get them quicker, so you don't have to wait. Typically when you order stuff from AliExpress, it takes about a month to 6 weeks for them to ship from China to here. So, you know, if you don't want to wait, just order them locally. You can get them much easier and faster that way. Okay, all right. So, you know, I'm not one of those guys where, you know, you do like an X and bunch of drops in between. For me, I just put enough in the middle, and the pressure from the heatsink should then slowly squeeze this evenly, spread this evenly across the entire surface. So that's all you needed. So just put sufficient there in the middle, and the pressure should take care of it. And this is just the side view. You know, this is about the size of a pea. So, you know, just put enough, then the pressure should be able to evenly spread and fill in all the areas here. So that's what I did. All right. And once you have the front padded and thermal grease applied, then it's time to put the housing back. And the reason I'm showing these connectors here is you want to reconnect the connectors first, because once you push the housing down, then the clearance here becomes hard for you to put your finger in there to try to put the connectors back. So it's better to have the connectors reconnected before you put the housing back. Then you have much more space to work with. All right. Okay. And yeah, so this is like a leftover strip of my Gillette GP Extreme. And what I've done, because this is so putty-like, so what I've done is I just lay this on top of that gap, and I press down hard on it. And the great thing about it is, just like putty, as you press down on them, you'll get an impression of the edges here. So once you have that impression, then you can just take your scissors and you can just cut out. You can cut out this. Oh, no, that's the wrong pen here. You can cut out this part here, and then you can just cut out this part here. Okay. Oh, I didn't draw that very well. Let me try that again. You can just cut out this part, and then cut out this little part here. So again, just put the leftover putty over the hole and press down on it. And like I said, it works like a putty. And if you ever work with putty, you will know that if you press it against a hard edge, you'll make an impression, and you can then just kind of like trace a line. Then you can just simply use your scissors or knife. I just use scissors, and then just cut along the impression, and you will have a perfect fit. So I'll show you next on that. And this is what it looks like. So once I cut the excess out, as you can see, it's just almost perfect. And this is all you need, because this is the area where the 2mm height gap existed, and I just used the remaining putty. And as you can see, from a height perspective, it's perfectly flush now with the back plate. So now this sets up for the next step. So now I have a great thermal coverage here, right? And that's even now or flush with the back plate. So if I imagine now, if I put that heatsink I showed you earlier over here, now I have direct thermal conductivity from my GDDR6 underneath all the way to a really nice heatsink. So you'll see next. Oh, and this is me prepping my heatsink. And what this is just a this blue tapes. These are double-sided thermal adhesives, and these are really thin. I think these are like 0.1 or I think these are 0.1mm thick thermal adhesives, and you can find this easily on Amazon. Again, I'll list the link below. But I just kind of tape it across, because they won't cover this. I just have multiple strips next to each other, and then yeah, so that's what it looks like. And you just trim, you just trim the excess out. And here's the kind of the finished. Let me rotate this. I'm surprised I did not rotate that. Yeah, perfect. So this is the finished product. As you can see, the heatsink just perfectly, it's the perfect size. So I use this power boost IC kind of as the boundary. So I just line up to that, and as you can see, where the thermal putty was underneath, this perfectly covered that entire area. And so as you can see, this is just a perfect heatsink of the perfect size that can cover the hottest part of the GPU from the back. So with that, now I have a complete thermal solution on the back plate, and every part of the GDDR6 is completely padded. So I was pretty satisfied and happy with how well it turned out. So all right. and this is when I have it installed back. So as you can see here, I no longer have the LED backlight in here, and because I have the heatsink here, it would have covered half of the logo there anyway. So even keeping the logo there doesn't matter. I mean, it actually probably will look worse because now you have like half the logo sticking out. And on top of that, I have a 92mm case fan that I also purchased on Amazon, and again I'll share the link below. And here, as you can see, that is just the right size that perfectly sits on top of this heatsink here. And I have the blow or the airflow direction down, so the air blows down, and because the heatsink is slotted this way, so the hot air blows sideways out. Okay, and with this, now you have a great thermal solution from the front, from this gigantic shroud heatsink assembly here, but then you also have just the perfect size heatsink and fan on the back, and then you have air blowing, exhaust the heat away from these super hot GDDR6 and GPU component at this part of the GPU here. So yeah, it just, everything turned out to be great, and planned better than I had expected, and I was surprised that it actually worked this well. So yeah, that's that. So let's see, let's go on. And then I took a picture of it with flashlight so you can see a little bit clearer. So again, here's the new, this is that 3090 Holo amp installed back into my system with the GPU SAC support, the 338 pin there, and then the heatsink that's now taped right over the GDDR6 and the GPU core, and then that's the 92mm fan which is attached to my fan header here. So, and yeah, and it works perfectly. I put it back on, turn it right back on, and everything was working. And then I got great temperature performance out of that. Okay, and yeah, this is just a side view so you can see where the logo used to be, and yeah, where the logo used to be right there, and where the heatsink just sit over the thermal putty that I built up underneath. And this is that 92mm fan on top of that heatsink, and now you have great thermal performance from the front, which is already there from the factory, and now you have excellent thermal performance on the back as well. And this is what it looks like in my case. I think this is a video. It's loading right now, and you can hear a little bit of buzzing sound or fan noise. I actually took this video when I'm doing my mining. So I have my fan speed set to 75%, and at 75%, you can hear it. It's not quiet, but it's not bad either. So it's actually and because of the new thermal solution, you can see that now I can mine without worrying about getting throttled or damage my GPU in the long run. So it's great. All right. And then here's another video with the window removed. Same thing. This is running, and I'm mining at this time. And well, I guess my microphone's probably a little bit further away. You cannot hear the noise. But if you're there, you can hear it. At 75%, the fan is noticeable. Okay. All right. Okay. I think that's the end of kind of my thermal repad journey, and I just want to show you some performance metrics. So this this was the score before I repadded. As you can see, it's 19600, which is pretty damn good considering, this is a ZOTAC 3090, but it's right up there. As you can see, the score is really amazing already factory. But then after I repad, as you can see, the score actually jumped almost more than 300 points there. And if I show you in the compare, so you can see there. I mean, it's not bad. It's a good 2% improvement or 1% graphics improvement. I don't know why my GPU varies so much, but whatever. But the GPU score is what matters. So as you can see, it improved the gaming performance for sure under 3D Mark. Okay. And if I click on the graphics card, so you can see here, it even ran the clocks run a little bit higher, right? And the temperature is cooler. Same testing conditions, right? Same exact testing conditions, a little bit higher clocked, and a little bit cooler temperature. So it's great improvement, and it's definitely worth it. All right, let's see, and yeah, let me just show you kind of some of the parts briefly. So this is the let me clear the screen. This is the fan I was talking about. This is the heatsink. This is the Gillette GP Extreme, and this is the GPU SAG support that I used. So again, I'll provide the links. You don't have to pause the video or anything like that to find where they are. All right, I think that's all I have. Maybe what I'll do is I'll let me see. Yeah, I think I should just end here. I was gonna maybe I'll show you. Let's see. Yeah, so here's my HW info, as you can see. But right now I'm not mining. The junction, the junction temperature is pretty low, and this is kind of the idle. I'm just, there's obviously some GPU processing going on right now because I'm using it to record this video. So it's something that it's not bad at all for that. So let me see. Let me maybe. Yeah. Okay. Let's see. Yeah, I think I'm just gonna end it here. And well, thank you for watching this video. I hope this helped you guys, some of you guys out there who wants to squeeze out more performance out of your ZOTAC 3090 Amp Holo. I know, for gamers and also for miners. And if I have time or I have other things I want to do a review on, I'll let you guys know. All right, thank you for listening through this long kind of rant. I kind of follow this same format as Billzoid, and I really enjoy his videos, so I'm just kind of following his format here. And by the way, pardon me for my poor audio quality. I don't have a dedicated USB microphone. I just use my webcam microphone, and webcam microphones are notoriously bad. So if anybody is offended by my my audio quality, please forgive me, as I don't have I'm not a professional at this, and I don't have good audio equipment available to do this video. All right, that's it. And again, thank you, and I hope this helps. All right, bye.